Hi guys, so first of all, thank you so much to you that has answered the questionnaire. I want to use this short video to explain why and the background of my thoughts about canine guidance, group function. The main reason for asking this question was actually to find out when colleagues are educating others, what are they actually saying to them and what are their thought process in choosing one over the other. So in this short video, I'm just going to show you briefly what I'm going to touch upon so you can decide if you want to have a look throughout the whole video. So first of all, why this questionnaire? As I said, I want to know why and how educators, they educate other dentists. I was at a meeting last Saturday where I had a talk together with two other great dentists, and one of the other dentists was talking and recommending canine guidance, whereas the other one said that canine guidance has no function at all, wasn't relevant, and he focused on some studies. And I was going like, well, if we can't even agree on the basics of having canine guidance, a group function, how on earth are we going to be like aligned in our treatment? Not that we are supposed to, but we need to have some kind of the same thought process, I think, at least. So one of the guys that said that canine guidance had no relevance to the function, the bite, the TMD, well, the main topic here was TMD and how we individually had to do our treatments and what were the things that we were looking upon. So if we stick with the guy that said that canine guidance has no relevance, he posted two links to studies that proved that this was not something that we had to look on. So I actually went down and looked on this study, which one of them was actually produced in 2003, but in 2016 this was actually withdrawn from the Cochrane review. So this is not a really good link to when you have a point that you want to get across. The other one was basically just a paper, one PDF paper. I think there's more to it than that, but it's basically just, talks about other studies and mention a study from 1930s and why it might have been an issue back then and why it isn't now. So it's not actually some kind of study, something that you can rely on. So I wanted to just touch base on seeing what do other educators actually think about this. So I'm going to touch on this one briefly. I want to go deeper into the research, just a tiny bit. There's a lot of research, so it's just going to be what I have actually gained from the opinion leaders from this questionnaire. So that's going to be it. And I'm just going to show you two real cases, not treatment or anything, but just things that you might want to have a look at and go, that could be interesting, and why does it look like this? So I was also asked from a colleague, what was this treatment actually about, that I took a picture, and quite frankly, this was just one of the latest treatments I've done, so there was no big, thought process on using exactly this picture, but it is kind of interesting, so I'm just going to show you the thought process and the steps that are done in this treatment. So that's going to be one of the last points. And of course, if you want to know more, what should you do and how do you want to share opinions? So this is what this short video is going to be about. So I've asked the group, a Facebook group in Denmark that is it has about 4,000 dentists, and like I said in the questionnaire, all the guys that want to have the full statistics over this questionnaire will receive it. This is only about the guys that are actually saying that they are educating others. So in this group, there was 21 that have been dentists for more than 5 years, and a single that has been a dentist between 1 and 5 years. And their opinion, when you cut it out, is about 3/3 of them would actually recommend canine guidance, whereas the rest say that you want to have group function or prefer group function, or just say that it's irrelevant. Now, the reason why I do this in English is because I would always also have the opportunity to get this across to the Orofacial Pain Academy. That is the other group that I have actually done this questionnaire to. And I was quite interested to see if that group was particularly different in opinions, because the people in this group has like one kind of go-to or one thought process that looks like it's all aligned, and the main thing here in this group is like canine guidance has no big relevance. So from this group there was actually about 27 people that said that they are dentists and are educating others on the matter. And when you see what their thought process is, it is almost similar, but not as much. So we're down to 63% that say that they would prefer canine guidance, while the rest are torn between group function and saying that it's irrelevant. So in my own Facebook group, I removed the option to get any comments on it because I wanted to have it non-biased. On the other group, I was not sure that it would actually be accepted if I were to not put in comments, so I did. And what came out of this was that one of the administrator, of course, came back quite quickly and said this is absolutely ridiculous, it has no difference, and I should look at some papers. And he names the author, and the author comes back and said yes, it's may actually no difference in the long term. So that is something that I was really interested in. Of course, the question is why I'm asking these questions. I believe that I've answered that already. And one of the other opinions was it doesn't matter of personal preference, but it's a matter of condition in the patient's mouth. So I'm just thinking that what is the condition in the patient's mouth, and when are we going to, take action? Is it when everything breaks down, or what is the condition that we are looking at? So I'm not getting a lot of answers from this comment. Another comment, it's totally irrelevant, both from a functional point of view and a prosthetic point of view. So that's good to know. So that's the opinion. And you see there's a lot of likes on it. So that is just proving my point that in this group, it doesn't have much relevance. Loss of canine guidance is a symptom, not a disorder, and that's true. And there's a lot of other stuff written down here of how this person actually treats, and that's fine. And one of the end pictures was this one, like a blind been eaten by a dog, and I don't know if that is something that the person self is thinking that he's doing, or this was like a gesture to me or whatever, but at least 3 other people actually liked it or thought that was funny, so that's great. So regarding the papers, I've got into finding one of them I'm going to take out, and this paper that touched on the myth number 8 is saying that CPO, that is short for canine protecting occlusion or cusp protecting occlusion, is the preferred functional occlusion type toward which to direct orthodontic patient treatment. So this is a paper focusing on orthodontics, and I'm not sure why that is something that is relevant for every people. But the conclusion is that it's equivocal. It says that pure canine protection or pure group function rarely exist, and balance and contact seems to be the general rule in the population of contemporary civilization. So that is just like a statement, isn't it? It doesn't actually explain anything. Modern evidence does not support a view that blindly adhere to the concept of CPO for all patients. I totally agree with that, because why should everybody have the same? We're all different. So that I agree totally with that one as well. one type of functional occlusion should not be considered optimal and preferred for all patients. So again, we are taking all the patients in one group and saying that everyone should not be treating the same way. Absolutely agree. Normal static occlusion for class 1 occlusion tend to have balanced occlusion or else group function and not CPO. Again, just a statement. This is what we see. That doesn't make it like although it's the norm, does that make sense that that should be something that we should go after? It doesn't make sense to me. Anyway, it has some referrals, so I'm looking into that as well. Group function and balanced occlusion with no interferences or balanced contact appear to be acceptable functional occlusion scheme. So, okay, so it seems to be acceptable, and that's why it doesn't make any difference whether you choose one or the other. I mean, I need to have more evidence than just statements like this. Stability and longevity of CPO is questionable. I would strongly disagree with that, and I will show you some cases in a second. Treatment is problematic since orthodontic treatment is often started before permanent canine have fully erupted. Absolutely agree. So how can you take all the patients that you have in the world and put them into the same group as orthodontic patients when you have this problem? So you need to focus on a whole kind of the group. And it states, and I really like this, then consideration of chewing cycle, kinetics, craniofacial morphology, static occlusion type, all these type of stuff must have some thing or a factor in the occlusion as well. And that is one of the greatest thing about this paper, saying that we need to have to look at everything and not only the guidance. So on the last part here, I totally agree as well. The conclusion is that if we want to have this, we look at this age-old ideas of orthodontic pathology that are based on names like blind faith and emotionalism, and we have these really strong words coming in and saying like we need to get rid of that and look at science and evidence. The dated idea and art of orthodontic pathology may actually be a waste of time for average orthodontic patients. Again, fully agree, because we're not the same and we need to look at all kind of other factors as well. The fact that something is used successfully does not mean that it's correct. That just, it blows my mind. If that is the conclusion of a paper, yeah, it's successful, but it doesn't mean that it's right. You've just taken everything and wiped it off the board, haven't you? So that I don't know. I don't know what to say to this comment. So as I said, there was some referrals. One of them was this one, 114, non-functional and functional occlusion. And this just states that during swallowing, it seems that the occlusal contacts obey laws nearly the same as those govern the occlusion contacts during mastication. Now that is really interesting, because that actually just states that whatever you do when you do the chewing, you actually go through this exact same process each time you do the swallowing. And we all know as dentists that you can swallow up to about 2,000 times a day. So that just tells you that whatever are hitting during the mastication, the same contacts are actually hitting throughout the whole day. Not in a strong manner, but like slowly. So we all know what happens when you drip water in a stone and what happens over a long period of time. So I just want you to have that in your memory. And the rest of this article, or actually the abstract, is just actually mentioning what is being seen in different bites. So I don't know, we can't use that for much. And the other referral, 115 here, this is an investigation using Strictcon base. So you're actually putting some kind of putty between the teeth, and then you measure 49 treated orthodontic patients and 27 untreated subjects. And the orthodontic patients treated at one university The number of eccentric occlusion contact is similar to that of a sample of untreated subjects. So again, what does this prove? It's just, at the best, it proves or say something about the orthodontic treatment, what was preferred, or maybe if you want to be a little nosy, you would probably say that this is what the orthodontist could achieve. So this is actually the result of a work, but it's not saying anything about what is actually best preferred. It's just say that we end up the same place. The other referral was this one, and again, it just mentions, how the different contexts were. I don't see any evidence or studies that says, one or the other. So this is just like a summary of occlusions, and that's great, but again, I can't actually use it for much. This is something that I find, on the other hand, really interesting. This is a study performed in 1999, where a group sat down and decided to measure the angulation of each cusp, going from the canine, where you have number 3, and then you go further down to the first and second premolar, and measure the angulation from the horizontal plane, and the measured like how much angulation does each tooth have. Now in canine guidance, you have angulation of the canine that's about 41 degrees, and as you can see, it decreases slowly over the other teeth. In patients with group function, you have a lot less angulation of the canine, and it is more or less similar to all the other teeth. So what does that tell us? I mean, it doesn't give us much, does it? But if we compare that to the fractions, and we'll look for people or teeth that doesn't have any fractions, and then measure the angulation of each tooth, we'll get mostly the same degrees of each tooth, looking like the canine guidance. So as you can see, the degrees are more or less similar. And if you look at people that have fractions, you suddenly see that you have more or less the same angulation of the cusps as in group function. That is a little interesting, because that tells you something, doesn't it? Marion made a study and looked at frequency of cervical lesions, both by patient and by tooth, and the results you can see there, it was a lot higher in group function than in canine guidance, and that was, of course, no matter if you looked only at the patient or by tooth. But altogether, if you look at this study, it shows you that the risk of lesions was about 12 times plus more likely in teeth of group function compared to canine guidance group. That is, for me, really relevant and says something about the function of the bite. As I told you, I would show you 2 cases. I'm not going to do a deep dive into it, but just show you the main function here. Here you see the bite. The patient comes in, doesn't really have any issues, although she knows she's a clencher, so she needs to have this splint that doesn't work anymore, but she can't sleep without it, because then she just, muscles get tied up, and she wants to know what we can do. Now, this patient was referred to me by a colleague because she was concerned about these teeth that were broken off. You have one there, you have one there. So that was back in November, October, and I got a full study on her, and I could actually show and I could prove that the most of the force, even though the teeth were broken on the upper left side, that the force on these teeth were actually quite higher than any other place. And I told her that we'll need to make some adjustments before anything, breaks. So unfortunately, this patient had some breast cancer, and she went away for quite a while. So I actually just saw her this week, and the result of that was that this cusp is now broken off. So again, I could actually, not with different, it wasn't a trick or anything else. I could actually just measure the bite and say that we have an issue here, we have a problem, and we need to fix it right away. So this actually just proved, not only for me and hopefully for you, but also for the patient, that we are, measuring what we are seeing and are preventing, hopefully, what will happen in the future. Other patient looks like this, more or less normal bites. Again, the patient was referred to me basically because the dentist saw that there was some chipping, and that was on both sides as well. And just not long ago, this cusp actually fractured as well. Again, for this patient and the other patient, there is no sign of canine guidance at all. So each time they do the mastication, swallowing, eating, talking, the back is hitting on all different sides, and it shows on the teeth. So yes, for me it actually is relevant. You can even see the effraction down here, and we can talk a long time about if this effraction, where you can see only on one tooth, is actually caused by a toothbrush or because of bad occlusion. I think at the moment we are all agreeing on that, this effraction is probably not done by a toothbrush. But I mean, just to show you. Should every patient be treated each the same way? And the answer is, of course, no. This is, if you don't want to put all kind of modern technology stuff in your patient's mouth, this is one way to check if and how they're actually weighing their teeth down. So these two patients don't have any problems or symptoms per se, although I can see that the one to the left comes in with a lot of wear on his teeth. He's a 10-year-old kid, and he's worn off about 2 millimeters of his permanent teeth already. Whereas the one on the right actually haven't, a big wear issue, but he is fracturing small amount of fillings and cusps of his teeth. So this just shows you what happens, what they're doing throughout the night with their teeth. So the kid on the left here, that is 11 years old, actually almost crushed it, whereas the other one, you can see some small evidence of wear at the back teeth. So none of them have canine guidance because it's worn away. So should they be treated the same way? And the answer is, of course, no, you can't, because there's all sort of other cases going on here. So the one on the right is treatable, and he's about to be treated, as you can see, with the composite on the front. And the guy on the left, unfortunately, is not something that I can treat. And I say unfortunate because it's actually my own son. So what I can do is preventing wear of the teeth. Some would go for preventing the mastication or the bruxism, and I would never prevent the bruxism. He needs to brux. I have a whole topic on that as well that I would love to talk to you about. But my main focus is just simply not to make him wear his teeth more than he has already done. Now, to get back to this case that I showed you before, this is actually the before scan, before the treatment. This was a patient referred to me by a colleague because this patient wears a splint. And when she doesn't wear the splint, she gets headaches, she gets sore muscles, and she doesn't actually sleep very well. So she's not fond of the splints. She wants to get rid of it, and the patient and the dentist just wants to know if I can do something to, change her bite. So I will give her the same function that the splint does. So basically what I do before I do a treatment is, of course, a treatment plan. And the treatment plan is just to validate the treatment digitally. So if we look for CR, if you believe in that, and if you see how she actually chews, you will see that it actually focuses a little bit. The first occlusion is on the left side first time, the second time is the same, and the third the same. So when she goes out and, take the jaw out to each side, we just had the left, now we see the right, we'll see contacts on the back teeth. So she has, of course, no canine guidance. So my idea was that we could do one of three things. We can just equilibrate, saying like we're going to take off of the back of the teeth, so she would actually gain canine guidance. And I can measure how much that we would need to take off, and I would say that that was way too much. Now, if we only grind a little bit and build up the front, so we'll have the canine or anterior guidance, how will that look? So I measure that as well, so I can give her that proposal, and when we see the results, we just see that the low incisors is going to be way too long. So that's not an option as well. So moderate grinding and build up, what does that do for us? Well, instead of 1.7 millimeters, we now need to take about 1.4 millimeters. And I must say that even though the computer says that it's so much, it's a lot less in reality. So she ends up with this situation where we have an acceptable amount of grinding and good alignment of lower teeth. So now it actually looks like her. We have almost not done anything. So from this picture on the upper left, we can now see that we have aligned the jaw with the upper. You have like great alignment. Before, the jaw was a little bit to the left, and I was actually not going for this. This is just, the build up and how the function is all together. It just makes the bite aligned. And that means that now she doesn't have contacts on the back of the teeth, but she has canine or anterior guidance, and that goes for both sides. Now, digitally, how can we actually prove that we have done a difference? Well, if we look at the bite now with the build-up, and when she opens up, this is actually how it looks, and when she protrudes, she has contact in the front as well. Before we did anything, I just showed you a short video before, she had a lot of force of the back teeth. Now it's centered. It comes from the front teeth and it's centered to the front, and it's aligned. Even though it was aligned before 50-50 on both sides, we just have more teeth in the front to cover the bite. When she grinds, when she do lateral protrusion to the left, she before had a really strong groove function on the back left side, whereas now she has canine guidance. And for the other side, exactly the same. Groove function before, canine guidance now. And one would ask, well, what now? Does that even make a difference? And 2 weeks after we've done this treatment, I'm calling up the patient, asking if the pain is returned. Does she have headaches? Does she have muscle soreness? How does that work for her? Because she can't, of course, use the splint at the moment. So the splint is gone. She has lived without the splint, and she feels absolutely no difference compared to using the splint. So we achieved what was the goal, and we can actually prove what we have done as well. I hope this was somewhat interesting for you. And if you want to hear more about this and even some of the things that we talked about with the bruxism and why people should brux, if you want to hear more about stuff that you can actually measure throughout your treatment, don't hesitate to contact me. And let's join forces and talk about what's going to be in the future.